All right, we're gonna talk about the books I read in March. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kat. I honestly feel like this month felt like a really long month, but also really short at the same time. I was able to read 6 books total, so that was a pretty good reading month for me. I feel like I actually don't remember what books I read last month or how many there were, but 6 I'm okay with. Before I dive into all the books that I read in March, I just want to give a little disclaimer to make sure that you check the content warnings on these. There are some heavy topics discussed, and I just want you to make sure that you read a book that will work for you. Just wanted to add that little disclaimer. Make sure to check the content warnings, and let's just dive into these books. The first book that I read in March is Honey and Spice. This was a buddy read with Taz, and I also have a reading vlog on it where I don't know if I did wrap it up a little bit. I talked a little bit about my reading experience of it, so if you're interested, I'll leave that linked so you can watch it. But basically what it's about, we're following Kiki, who is going to Whitewell University, and she also has a radio show where she basically gives relationship advice, and there's a new person on campus called Malachi. Once he kind of joins the university, everyone kind of loses it a little bit. Everyone has a crush on him, everyone's feeling him, and Kiki's basically like, whoa, everyone, you need to calm down, like he's not that great, he's just here to stir the pot. And in a turn of events, they somehow end up in a fake relationship. I really enjoyed this book. I'm not really a romance reader, so keep that in mind. I don't often read romance, but this one really did it for me. I love the relationship between her and Malachi and seeing where the relationship was going. The friendship between Kiki and her best friend, I thought that was great. I feel like there were some heavy topics discussed in it as well. I read this when I was in a little bit of a reading slump, and this really helped me. I just wanted to keep reading it. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was really sweet. I typically get a little like cringed out very easily, so I get nervous with some romances, but this one I didn't really feel that at all. I really enjoyed it. So that was my first read. I started off with a strong one. Really enjoyed it. The next book that I ended up reading in March was Good Talk by Mira Jacob. This is a graphic novel, and it's a memoir told through different conversations. The reason I read this was because it was a recommendation from Kayla for the 12 books recommended by 12 friends. I love memoirs. I'm trying to get into graphic novels, and this seemed kind of like the perfect way to kind of dive into it. It starts off with conversations that Mira is having with her son, and it's in the midst of the 2016 election, so the questions start off really like simply, nothing too like difficult, but then they start progressing a bit and they start getting a little more heavy, and you can tell Mira's not fully sure how to go about answering some of these questions because they are trickier subjects and they are getting a little more heavy, and how do you explain that to a younger child? So let me show you some of like the art. I really liked the format of it. Just love how it's like pictures and then like some drawings, like the picture in the background, but then the drawing of the people. Like I really loved that combination. This is one that I flew through. It was so easy for me to get through this one. I was nervous because it's a graphic novel, and I'm not always super comfortable reading graphic novels because you have to like look at or at least my brain wants to look at the picture and then read, but I want to look at everything in the picture, so sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming. But this was really great. I didn't want to put this one down. I enjoyed the topics that were discussed. This definitely brought me back to that time in 2016 and a lot of the feelings that I was feeling on what was going on with the election. Overall, this was a really great read. I thought this was unique in the way that each of the little stories is told through a conversation. I haven't read Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? But I think I've heard that it's like email correspondences, and that sounds like something I would really like, just because I like small little things like that where it's like, I don't know, something about that kind of format, and something similar to this where it's like different small conversations, different looks into those conversations, that really just works for me. I really enjoy it. So that was Good Talk by Mira Jacob. I thought it was a great recommendation from Kayla, so glad I got to that. The next book that I read, I don't have a copy of because I listened to it on audio through Scribd, and it's Big Swiss by Jen Began. This freaking book. Okay, so the synopsis is basically we're following Greta, and she's a transcriptionist for a sex therapist or a sex counselor. I can't remember, but basically he has one client and she becomes obsessed with this client. She calls her Big Swiss because she doesn't know her full name. That's like a quick quick little synopsis of it. This was the book that I was reading while I was doing a lot of cleaning around my house, so it was super entertaining. It was definitely unhinged. A lot of moments I was like, what is going on? The situation with their home was really interesting to me. I didn't really understand where they were living, just because of a lot of the descriptions. I will say it was entertaining, but I don't know if I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. I wasn't sure if it was because of all the hype around it, or if it's maybe that I don't know if I necessarily care for the unhinged genre as much anymore. I feel like I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation and I really liked that one, but then ever since then, although I did really love Milk Fed, but those are the two that I loved the most, and after that there hasn't been another book that I really love. It wasn't like a 5-star or anything like that. It was definitely enjoyable to read while I'm cleaning. It got me through a lot of cleaning, so that was good. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't blow me away as much as I thought it might. There is definitely some things to note. There are some comments made by the main character that are questionable, very racist. And going into it, I had seen some reviews where they mentioned some of those comments that were in the book, specifically the one where something had happened. I don't want to give anything away, but something had happened and she basically says like to her friend like, oh, you should have seen me, I looked Italian and then Chinese, and it just felt really out of place. I knew going into it that was a line in the book, so when I was listening, I was kind of like keeping an ear out for it, because I think sometimes it can be very easy to miss some things when you're listening to it. When I came across it, it just like threw me off even more because the context around it, like I fully don't understand what it meant. So I feel like it wasn't necessary to be included in the book. It just felt really out of place and I don't know, I didn't understand it. There was also a line where, and I must have missed this one, I didn't hear it, but someone makes a comment about like the bees looking Japanesey, and that's another line that I'm like, what does that mean? I don't understand. So yeah, just little things to note about that if you're reading it. It was an okay book for me. Okay, and then the next book I read, I also don't own because I got an e-copy from my library, and that's All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. Let me give you a synopsis. So it's basically a memoir and it's told in different essays. I just thought it was an amazing book. This is a book that's been on my list for a very, very long time, and I finally got around to it, and I'm so glad I did. I participated in the Trans Rights Readathon, so 3 of the books that I'm going to be talking about this month were for that readathon. This was the first one that I read, and it was just so good. I'm so glad I finally got to it. I think it's an excellent read. I think it's an important read. I think it's going to make a big impact for a lot of young queer people, and I think it's important that it exists. There's something that's stuck with me ever since I read it, where George talks about some of their sexual experiences, and they make a note about the fact that they weren't sure if they wanted to include it because a lot of these felt kind of like vulnerable and a little bit embarrassing for them to talk about, but that they thought it was so important to talk about it so that other young queer people can read about it and like learn through their experience. And I think that's so important, the fact that like they decided to put this out so a lot of people can read, but just knowing that might help someone, I just think that's so great, and I think it's just so powerful. This one definitely covers some very, very heavy topics, so make sure to check the trigger warnings for this one. I just thought it was beautifully written. The relationship between George and their grandmother I loved so much. I know that's not the case for everyone, so it was really beautiful to see that relationship and how it affected George. So yeah, that was the 3rd book that I read this month, and so good. It was so good. The next book that I read in March was Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. This one is basically about our main character Ada, and she is an Obanji. She was born in Nigeria and then she goes to school in the United States for college. Something traumatic happens to her while she's in the US. We see the effects that experience has on her and what kind of comes of it. I don't want to give too much because I honestly went into this not fully knowing. I knew it was about like an Obanji, but I didn't know anything else, and I loved this book so much. I think this is my favorite Akwaeke Emezi book that I've ever read. I've read The Death of Vivek Oji. I've read oh my god, what is the name? The name of the book that I can never remember. You Made a Fool of Death with your beauty. I hope I'm saying that right. This is my third book that I'm reading from them, and my favorite. I love the writing. I love the story. If you watched I think I mentioned it in a reading wrap up, maybe it was a vlog as well, but I talked about the book Butter Honey Pig Bread. That one also has an obanji, and I remember feeling a little bit lost. Like I enjoyed it, but some of the stuff regarding the obanji definitely like went over my head. So I was nervous going into this one that like, oh, I might not like fully understand it, which is fine, not a big deal, but I feel like maybe because I had already read a book with an obanji, this one felt a little bit more comfortable. And I feel like I could see maybe it being a little bit hard to follow, and there were things that I didn't fully grasp, but for the most part, I was able to like hang. I was able to hang and like keep track and understand about what I was reading, and I freaking love this one so much. Another really heavy read. Please make sure to check the content warnings on this one, but obsessed. I love this one so much. I also read Freshwater for the Trans Rights Readathon, and the next book that I read in the month of March for the Trans Rights Readathon was The Seat by Hannah Porter, and oh my god. I would have never picked this up, but I kept seeing it around by different people recommending this for the Trans Rights Readathon, and I'm very glad I picked it up. If you see a bookmark, it's not me. My partner is actually reading this book currently, and he was the one that actually picked this one up, so it was hanging out on my shelves. It was perfect. I picked it up, and I'm really glad I read it. Let me give you the synopsis of this. So basically, our main character is Trina, and one day Earth gets invaded by aliens, and the alien entity is called the Seat. It's really hard to describe the Seat because it feels like it's just everything, everywhere, all at once. Love that movie. It just feels like it's everywhere, and it's in everything, and there's so many different ways you can use the Seat. So there's like ways to use it for medical things, there's a way to use it to like kind of change your appearance. Like the Seat is everything. That's how it feels. Capitalism is dead. Anything you want, you can have because of the Seat. So basically things are changing. Trina's having to adjust. She kind of goes on a little bit of an adventure. There's a boy that shows up from the compound, and the compound is basically where there's no Seat, I guess. I don't really want to say too much, and I feel like even that might be too much, but I feel like none of that is spoilers because I see it all on the back. So I think we're fine there. This is a super short book, and the spacing and text is really like, this was pretty quick to kind of get through. I thought this book was really funny and fun. There was a lot of little silly moments in it that I really enjoyed. I don't typically read this genre, what is the genre? This is science fiction, speculative fiction. This one felt super accessible for me. Nothing was super hard for me to grasp. I really enjoyed it. I liked that it was short, and it was fun, just kind of like learning about the Seat. And I feel like this book brought up a lot of questions for me, just reading through. I'm like, oh, how would I feel about this if that happened to me? Or how would I feel about the Seat and using it for X, Y, and Z? It definitely brought up a lot of questions while I was reading it. I think the only thing and this is probably a me thing. It's probably because typically I feel like a lot of the books I read aren't really plot heavy, they're more character heavy. I wish I would have seen more from Trina and her friendships and a little bit more of the relationships, because those were the parts that I loved. Like I loved the parts where they had like a dinner party and like seeing the dynamics and how they interacted. I really loved those parts, but I really enjoyed it. And that's just a me thing with the whole character thing. That's just what I like. But I thought this was a great read. It felt really accessible for me, and I mean the cover's stunning. My partner is reading it right now, and I've been checking in to see like what he thinks about it so far, and he also thinks it's really funny and he's enjoying it so far. He's on page 93, just in case you wanted to know. Yeah, I thought this was a unique little book, and I'm really glad I gave it a chance, because typically books like these I might just look over, but I'm glad this Trans Rights Readathon got me to kind of sit and read this book. Okay, so now it's the part of the video where I do a little 2023 reading challenge check-in. I am participating in 4 that are going on throughout the year. I did just participate in one extra, the Trans Rights Readathon, and I'm sure there'll be a few more challenges I also participate in. But for the Trans Rights Readathon challenge, I did complete the 3 books that I set out to read, so that was exciting. It was a great readathon to be a part of. I feel like it really inspired me and pushed me to like get through these books and read them, which is exactly what I needed, because I was feeling a little slumpy, and I don't know if it's anyone else. I've talked to some people who also keep getting into reading slumps, but this year has been the year of the reading slump, and I'm not here for it. I would like that to stop, and hopefully now that the weather is getting nicer, I can go outside and read more, go to some coffee shops and read, and hopefully the sun and the warmer weather will get me to want to read more. So let's see. Okay, so for my reading goal for the year, I currently have that set to 50 books, and I'm currently at 15 books out of 50 read. So I'm making my way. I think I saw on Storygraph that it said I'm 3 books ahead, which awesome. That's great. Love to see it. And then for the Trans Rights Readathon, like I said, I read The Seep, Freshwater, and All Boys Aren't Blue. So those were completed. The 4 other reading challenges that I'm taking part in is the Shake Up Your Shelves challenge, the 10 books, 10 decades, the 5 rereads, and the 12 books recommended by 12 friends. So those are the challenges I'm taking part in. Okay, so for the Shake Up Your Shelves challenge, last time we checked in, I had completed 3 out of 16 prompts, which that puts me at 13%. After my reading in March, I'm now left at 6 prompts completed out of 16, which leads me to 38%. So for one of the prompts, it was a book that has been banned or challenged, and for that prompt, I'm putting All Boys Aren't Blue as completed. The next prompt that I'm completing is for a dystopian or utopian book about the future, and for that prompt, I'm putting The Seep. The next prompt that I've completed is a book published in 2023, and that's gonna go for Big Swiss. So yeah, those are the 3 books that I read in March that are now getting added to the Shake Up Your Shelves challenge. Okay, so up next, I'm checking in on the 10 books, 10 decades, and I didn't complete any of them. I didn't read any books for the 10 books, 10 decades challenge, so April, hopefully I'll have read something for that challenge. So last month when I checked in, I had read 3 out of the 10 prompts, so that still leaves me at 30% complete for this challenge. The next challenge that I didn't complete or do any prompts for is the 5 rereads. I still haven't done any of my rereads that I want to. Hopefully in the coming months, I'll have reread a book, at least, please. And then the next challenge is the 12 books, 12 friends challenge. Last time we checked in, I had completed 1 out of the 12, so that left me at 8%. And now we're at 2 prompts complete out of 12, so that's 17% complete. And the book that I read for this challenge this month was Good Talk by Mira Jacob. And like I said, this was recommended to me by Kayla. So yeah. So I was able to make a big dent in the Shake Up Your Shelves challenge, and I guess I didn't make a huge dent in the 12 books recommended by 12 friends. I honestly need to get on it because I'm a few months into 2023 and I've only read 2. But yeah, that's my March wrap up. I feel pretty good about this month. I feel like a lot of the books I really enjoyed, and a lot of them were a little out of my comfort zone. I read a romance, I read a graphic novel, I read a science fiction, speculative fiction. So yeah, I'm feeling really good about my month. I think 6 books is a great number of books to have read. I'd love to know how your reading month went. Let me know what a favorite read of yours was. I think for me, oh God, I'm actually kind of stuck on what to pick. I think Freshwater was a favorite, and All Boys Aren't Blue. Those are really stick with me. But yeah, I'd love to know what your favorite read or reads of the month were, what you're hoping to read in April, and if there's any challenges you're participating in. I know the month of April is the Trans Girl Readathon, I believe, and it seems like there's a few other challenges as well. So would love to know some other reading challenges you're participating in. I'm always on the lookout for fun little challenges. I think that they're really helpful for getting through my stack, especially after doing the Trans Rights Readathon one. I thought it was such a great motivator to read more books. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.